Have you ever wondered how AI is changing the software engineering industry? Well, here we go. It's my pleasure to welcome Phil Nadon today. Phil, how's life in Calgary, Alberta?
It's great. I love the mountains. I'm always out there hiking, ice climbing, that sort of thing.
Okay, well, welcome to the show. You're a senior software engineer at Shopify. So I'm curious to hear from you today about how this industry is changing. Can you walk us through a real problem you worked on recently and what was so challenging about the problem?
Sure, yeah. The industry is definitely changing a lot. Even like in just the past 6 months, like how we used to like tackle problems and how we're doing it now is completely different. I guess like recently, some of the harder problems I'm working on, um, it's like I guess like the harder challenges in the industry right now are uh, more so now about like the tackling trade-offs, design, like collaboration, the higher level stuff, and less about the deeper kind of details of like writing code. Since nowadays, I think essentially all my code's being written by AI. So it's been a lot more about collaboration and the I guess like the underlying semantics.
Okay, so when you mention AI, so this has had a huge impact, I suppose, in a very short period of time. Is that right?
Absolutely, yes, and it's only changing faster and faster. Like the tools I use nowadays are like completely different than even just a couple months ago. So every month is different. Um, and I guess if you like that sort of pace, it's a very exciting time to be. There's definitely some interesting trade-offs and things we can talk about as we go along.
So then what does it mean to be a software engineer these days, if you had to tell a person on the street? What does it entail these days?
Well, I think I'd like to answer that question by sort of focusing on like why are people hired as software engineers? At the end of the day, the business always has like objectives and goals it wants to achieve. And software engineers are the people that sort of tackle the high level goals, turn them into projects and tasks, and then like execute those tasks, right? And they solve those tasks by writing code. But the code really is just like the implementation. And really, what makes someone extremely valuable at companies, they're often very good at translating the high level goals into those projects and tasks and being good at collaborating with other people in the company, seeing the bigger picture, seeing the business value, and being good at designing the solution in a way that best fits the business needs.
So that's somewhat independent of AI. So before AI, what did it mean to design a software system well? And I'm assuming even with AI, is the answer still the same?
It's still largely the same, I guess, in that part. It's just now that AI accelerates a lot of parts that before were very manual. I can give a really good example. In fact, usually when you want to propose like a new feature or design a new service, instead of investing like full on into developing the entire thing, which can cost easily millions of dollars, right? In developer time and infrastructure, you'll write quickly a prototype as a proof of concept to demonstrate like the value and the viability of this idea. And that's one of the biggest parts where AI has just completely changed things. Where normally it would take me like weeks to, have a decent prototype. Now I can do it in an evening while sipping coffee and watching TV. Right? It's just completely changed the how fast you can prototype and then present like an actual working prototype.
Yeah, as long as you don't tell your boss you do this in front of a TV drinking coffee, we won't tell anyone, right? That's right.
So, Phil, we were never formally introduced, but I've heard tons about you. I'm a professor at Emory University right now. I was working with Peter for a while at Brock University, and I'm really, really interested in everything that you have to share because a lot of my students are interested in being software engineers and they're CS students, and I can see the effects of AI that you're talking about. And I guess the first question that I have that I really want to relay to my students is, what kind of things do they have to prepare for now that things are changing, if they want to be software engineers in 3-4 years from now when they graduate?
Let me think about that just for a moment.
Well, maybe what was it like for you?
Yeah.
So maybe just tell us, like, how long have you been working in industries? So basically, after your university graduation, I suppose. And then maybe we can start with your own story,
your own
if you
journey.
like.
Yeah, I guess like how I got into industry. Yeah. So I've been in industry for I guess I graduated almost 6 years ago now, which is crazy to say because it feels like it was only like a couple years ago. Um, but I distinctly remember the things that really got me into industry, got me that first job, and then that second job was um, I I always I always sort of worked on small projects or jumped into clubs or events that kind of left me dip my toes into what it was like actually building something and shipping something. Um, because that kind of experience and those kind of skill sets I found were largely missing in university. The university was great at teaching the fundamentals, but when it came to knowing how to work with people and to like ship something that people actually end up using, I ended up finding that elsewhere. And I think that was the big thing that helped me. Just in general, kind of being comfortable with jumping into something that was well beyond my current skill set. Like the ETA tool I built for Calgary, which essentially lets someone plot a point A to point B with two different scenarios. Like if scenario A was regular speed limits, and scenario B was if they had lowered speed limits in residential zones. Just to see how much time difference there would be if they did lower the speed limits. They wanted us to build that for them, and we found that you would only really lose like a minute at most of the time. And which was great because the incentive of the city of Calgary was to try to make residential zones safer. Um, and that was something I jumped into, and I knew basically nothing on like how to actually write this. I didn't know JavaScript. I didn't know any of the tech that was needed, but I kind of figured it out along the way. I was just Googling like crazy. All my fellow like students, like my friends, we were all kind of scrambling to get this working. But we figured it out because I guess the motivation was there first, followed by kind of the need to build the skill set, which we did, and then finally, we kind of learned from that type feedback loop.
So then, for this project in Calgary, like, how did it come about? Like, you approached the city, they had a project, or was it through the university, or how did this happen? How does a student?
One of my friends that
No, go. Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
one of my friends, they saw that there was a something called a hackathon happening in Calgary.
Okay.
So like just a hosted event by the city of Calgary where you show up and they say, hey, here's this general theme. We want you to just prototype something and present it to us, and then see if it sounds like a good idea and have people vote on it. And they liked our prototype so much that they ended up contracting us for it to like build the full-fledged thing. And for us, the prototype took multiple days and 3 people. But I think today, if I had AI, I could have done it in 30 minutes on my own, right?
Wow.
And that's the big difference. That's the big difference.
So that actually is perfect that Peter asked it that way, because if that's the difference maker then, which was, I think a few things I wrote notes down, which were critical, is that motivation you wrote, sort of showing up, actually like going to a hackathon and then having the 2 or 3 people around you to work with. Those are the skills that you needed then. Clearly what you're saying now is that you don't need any of that. Maybe you need to show up. Maybe you need some motivation, but then a Phil now that would be a student today, what would you do to make it into software engineering? What do you think you could do or recommend for students to be able to have the similar journey, but with the tools that they have now?
Yeah, I think see the events that are going on. I think as of right now, like how universities are right now and what's available to you, see what events are happening, see what clubs are doing, see what opportunities for internships are happening at your university. I talked actually with a recent intern, like someone who had like recently like become an intern, and they said the biggest thing that got them to their position was like very similar things. It was like jumping into events, becoming part of the community, and going outside of your classes, because your classes will be that sort of baseline fundamentals, right? Like this is how a computer works, right? But you need to jump into that community and kind of see what's going on outside of classes. That's the huge differentiator. Yeah, that's what I would recommend wholeheartedly.
Okay, so Phil, you said that universities are good at teaching fundamentals. So first of all, these fundamentals you think will still be needed even 5 or 10 years from now. Is that fair to say, or AI is so prevalent then that you can almost forego that at that point? What's your take on that?
Yeah, that's a very hot topic. Actually, recently I saw there was a talk by the, um, I think it was the CEO of Anthropic, and he was saying that actually he saw that in some cases, people who were very, very like most of their experience was around those technical skills. That was in fact a setback for them
Wow.
compared to people who didn't have as much of those technical skills because there was like a natural incentive or like habit to immediately drill down into the details, into the technical nitty gritty,
Amazing.
instead of looking at the big picture or assuming you don't know anything, and then kind of using the tools available to you, which includes Google AI, whatever, your colleagues at work, right? Like I talk to my colleagues on a regular basis, just like because I don't know the things they do. Um, but like that's really important, right? So I still think they're important. I would say at university, I think given you spend at least 4 years and a lot of money on a degree, I think too much of it is spent on those fundamentals. And I think if your main objective is not to go into academia, but to go into industry, I think more of that time or more resources or opportunities should be given to you to build those other skills that are just as important, if not more so, than the fundamentals in industry.
It was amazing you said that because I was just telling a peer of mine, I feel there is this weird bias that computer scientists and software engineers have developed over the years where because we sort of were used to knowing the tedious that is involved in kind of achieving our goals, like you did with that project, whenever we think of a vision or a goal, we often have this friction, as you said. There's a setback to us where we're like, but we know the work that it's going to need to be done. But someone that's outside of the field doesn't know that. So they actually have that bravery to actually commit to the project and do it. And I think there might be this flip where the most successful software engineers might not even know how to code or need to code. And I think Dario Amadei, exactly. I heard about that conversation he had at Davos where he was saying more or less this. And I was going to ask you this, and I think maybe you agree with him, but I was going to ask you specifically. He said something along the lines of, in 6 to 12 months from now, you won't need to code at all. Models will do basically all of it for you. Is that an exaggeration, or do you really think 6 to 12 months from now, these major firms, software engineering companies, will not need you to be doing any of the coding at all?
It's always, I think you can never say 100% either way.
Okay.
There's always those little exceptions or like nuances.
Yeah.
But I think the trend is generally that over time, I have written less and less code.
Wow.
And most recently, I have written little, if any,
Wow.
aside from some things that like I know the context better than the AI. I know I can do it quickly. Like I know what to do, right? But for like larger pieces, or especially when the task is very well defined, I'm telling it, create a new page, add this label with the user's name, this list of products, like just very clear stuff, right? It'll execute that faster than I ever can. Like I can explain it way faster than I can code it, and it'll just code it up, and I can move on.
Phil, I'm curious about this. Is that so? I work in language, and I find that and you don't need to work in language to appreciate this, but that the output of large language models has a little bit less variance and entropy that would be the production of language across different writers. And I know that's fading over time, but this is the whole joke with M dashes, where we're seeing this style of language models really start to show up in material online. Do you think on a coding level, when from scratch, I want to develop a prototype, and let's say there's a web page, you start to see eerie similarities between products where you don't really see that expression of uniqueness? Is that something to worry about at that level too, or not? Basically, I'm to say that if I'm this keen student that wants to develop an app, should I be worried that the production of this app will basically look very obvious that it was a model that made it because it looks similar to every other app in terms of, like, let's say the UI or the front end?
I think it depends what you're using AI for.
Okay.
Like I volunteered in this sort of like, I guess like app idea sort of brainstorming event recently. And I could tell when some ideas, some prototypes,
Wow.
like people had used AI to write the code, but they themselves had the idea. Because it was clearly like a very unique, well-defined idea. But then you would have some other people who It was very obvious. They all had the same idea, which was it's like this, multi-usage app that combines a bunch of services together, and it sounded almost the exact same. And I'm almost willing to bet that they all asked ChatGPT, "What's a good idea for me to bring to this event?"
Insane.
Right. So I think the idea part, the design part, the part where you see the underlying like the semantics of what the business needs or what industry needs, that's still like very human, and like that's where your value shines. But if you just need, okay, I need a web page spun up that shows me this information, you can just get AI to do that, right? Because it's well defined, it's not unique in any way. It solves your problem, right?
So do you think we're moving past caring that the style almost looks the same, but the content is what matters? And it's the same in language. I think I've started to see some people say, well, yeah, everybody edits their language with AI now. So let's not worry about judging somebody because there's a ton of M dashes. It's about the sort of idea behind what they're saying. Is that actually starting to happen?
Maybe. I'm not sure if I can speak to that. That almost sounds more like a user interface design.
Maybe it's just at the design level. Yeah, sure. It's user interface. You're right. But it's so, exactly as you said, so obvious to me. I was also in a recent student symposium where there was the same idea. They basically had to try to come up with a solution to a problem in diabetes. So come up with an app that solves this problem in an under-resourced setting. Ideas were unique, but it was like the product looked identical. It was like the coloring scheme was the same. And isn't that interesting? There was like 6 competitors and we all looked at the presentation and they didn't know it, but they all looked the same. So it's like, I was thinking about that a lot. I was like, is that something that we should lament and worry about and like try to avoid, or is that going to be just how it is?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, if you're a company and you have X amount of money to invest into engineers, engineer time, all this, and your product, like your end goal has very little emphasis on the user interface, right? Like it really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, your objective is something completely else. Maybe it's like just like I don't know, you're building something for that people like barely ever look at. Like you said, like your example game maybe is a good one. The actual interface doesn't matter as much. Then maybe you're not going to put as much emphasis into it. It doesn't matter if they look all the same. But maybe if you're Apple and you're designing the home screen for your iPhone, I hope it doesn't all look the same. Like I hope it's very intentionally designed for the phone for your purpose, right? And that's where they invest more money into it.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, Phil, it's about creativity then. So, I don't know, in your own career, in this case, you work at Shopify these days.
Yeah.
So, do you see AI enhancing creativity in the workplace? That could be an elegant solution to a problem. That could be a creative solution. It could be the product itself looks or provides a creative solution to something, whatever it might be. So, or can it also kill creativity? So, what's your experience?
Mm-hmm.
I think in general, AI is good at gathering information and gathering context that maybe you weren't aware of. But I don't know. I think it depends. Yeah, it depends how it's used. I think that's a big it depends kind of question. Yeah, it's hard to say. Some companies or some people will take shortcuts where otherwise creativity maybe would have been used, right? I mean, definitely like cost is prioritized very often, right? And sometimes for the worst, right? Especially in the art scene, right? But in other cases, maybe you can delegate more of your time, like more of the automation or to AI, more of the repetitive tasks to AI, and then focus more on the creative aspect. But it depends how the business prioritizes that, right? Like ultimately it's how it prioritizes that sort of stuff.
So one thing you said was that most of the code you rarely write code these days. Most of the codes get written by AI. So I get worried right away, not being a software engineer, so what about cybersecurity then? So do humans still read every line of code at least? Is that still happening? Or not even that?
Yeah, that's a very good topic. So I can say generally in industry, because AI accelerates how fast you can ship code, you're getting to a point where the expectation now is that you ship a lot of code, right? So everyone's shipping a lot of code, shipping a lot of features. You've seen like now Microsoft, I think, had posted something about how like the vast majority of the code is being written by AI. And then like a few months later, you saw they had a massive vulnerability being released like on Windows. Similarly, a service that like software developers depend on worldwide, GitHub. Um, like it used to be that like I would never see it go down. Like it went down. It was like it was a really notable thing. It's like, oh wow, GitHub's down. Like we're always expecting this to be up. And then I think in the past month we've noticed like at least like 4 or 5 times it's been down.
Wow.
Like several times. And it's just like almost an expectation now that the reliability of some of these services are going down just because of how fast they're trying to iterate or
Wow.
just how much code they're just trying to push. So I think it's an issue. I think because AI accelerates things, the expectation is that, well, now you should be going faster. So you ship more code, which results in less code being reviewed, or maybe some people using AI to tackle problems that maybe they don't have as much expertise in, making mistakes or letting the AI make assumption, more bugs being introduced, more issues being introduced, and then you get more incidents, less reliability. So that's absolutely a
Wow.
huge area. Cybersecurity is, I think, going to be huge.
Okay,
Continue to be huge.
okay, so maybe you can give us a very specific example. So you might oversee a team of people. Is that correct? Is that what you do in your job?
Yeah, I work in a team.
Okay,
Although I can say I can't really talk too much about stuff.
That's
I do at
fine. No,
work,
that's
just
fine.
for
But I
confidentiality
mean,
reasons.
no, I understand all of this. But no, my question is more like, I can now generate as a single person, well, with the help of AI, thousands of lines of code a day, right? Thousands of lines, arguably. I mean, there's no limit, almost arguably. So that strikes me as more than I can check on and read and understand, I suppose. Is that fair to say? It strikes me as such, to be honest. And so that's
Yeah,
why I get
I mean,
nervous about, like, about the
yeah, I
complexity of
mean,
the
you
problem.
definitely can.
I see.
You definitely can write a lot of code, but it's, I guess, again, like where the value really comes into play is like, do you actually know what it's doing? Is it actually meeting the goal you're trying to achieve? And is it doing it in like a reliable way, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, like you definitely, maybe you don't need as many people to do the same project, but I don't know. It's not just a simple like, yes, one person can do 5 people's worth of work, right?
Yeah.
Then there's always the like, well, what if you're working on something that's very nuanced? It's very cutting edge, right? It's like in an area that AI has not really seen before, right? Like you're building something completely new. It's going to struggle a lot. It's going to hallucinate, and it's not going to be very helpful, right? And in which case you need to slow down. You might not be able to write as much code with AI or as quickly, right? And the design and the implementation details will be much more important. Like you'll need to be much more careful. But if you're just trying to spit up a quick web app and it looks like all the other ones, and you just need to do this one simple thing, yeah, that's not something you need someone to do anymore.
Mm-hmm. These are really good questions that leads me to ask. Basically, it seems that there's this set of desert data that you are kind of keeping in mind about what would make a really good software engineer. And clearly it's that, yeah, it's not just somebody that sits one day and says, I want to write a good web app once. What would that be if you're interviewing someone right now as a potential software engineer? What are maybe some of the traits or qualities that you're looking for that say, this person might not struggle in the age of AI and they might actually be able to contribute to reliability, as you say? What could those be?
Sure, yeah. I think it's the same skill sets that actually let you move from those like lower, like those junior roles to more senior roles. Like those skills still haven't really changed. It's the seeing the big picture,
I see.
seeing where the company's headed and knowing, okay, well, that means like maybe this new project is like will help us get to the company's goal, or the project that I'm working on should have like these features or break down into these tasks, because ultimately this is how it all fits together and this is where the company's headed. It's honestly knowing how to talk to people, knowing how to collaborate, knowing how to communicate, right? That's like priceless. AI has not replaced that at all.
Honestly, would you appreciate or care or value if they know how to code at the cost of anything else?
Yeah, I think, well, yes, to a degree. So I'll say like some companies now are allowing you to use AI during interviews. You can use it as much as you want.
Wow.
And one example of an interview question that I've seen before that I personally enjoy is one where I know that when the AI generates the code for it, it'll have some very clear mistakes in it. And if you're able to catch that during the interview, great. You're actually able to like analyze and see what it's doing, and you know at least how to sort of troubleshoot it. Even if you don't know like what exactly that mistake is, you know kind of how to get around, or you know how to do the research, or to test it, or to ask it, hey, write these tests that verify what you're doing is correct. Like if you can do that, great. But if you have it generate all the code, and then like someone who's interviewing like the potential intern says, hey, like this line here, why is it doing that? Can you tell me maybe what's going wrong here? And they just say, oh, sorry, I don't know.
See.
And in real industry, you'd be introducing a bug, and potential like huge incidents into production, right? Like you'd be costing the company like a lot of issues.
That makes me hopeful in the curriculum we still have in CS, because we're still teaching some good stuff. Yeah, it's interesting.
So Phil, when you talk to, say, teenagers these days, high school students, and of course they might ask you the obvious question, right? Oh, you work at Shopify, you're very experienced software engineer and so on. Is it still worth going into this field? Because I heard that AI will take care of all that in the future. So do you think there'll be net job growth still in software engineering, say next 10, 20 years even? Or what is your take on it? What do you expect to happen?
Yeah.
If it's a technological revolution, you may argue it should overall create jobs, something new, right? Or it's a race against AI and might reduce them. What do you think it might happen?
Yeah, in terms of net change, I think it's hard to say. I think there'll definitely be new jobs in roles, but those roles won't be the same that you saw like 10 years ago, right? It won't be, you won't be hired with the same expectations that you used to. So I think, again, with sort of the stuff I've hinted at before, I think it's still a good industry to get into. There's some huge upsides, right? It's very flexible, right? You can work remote. The pay is like it's very competitive. But you need to be someone who is willing to constantly adapt, right? To always see where the industry is headed. So I think in this industry, more than most others, it moves quickly. And I think you want to find ways to develop those skills of how to translate the business value into something you create. Don't just study the tools you use, right, which is coding. Study like ways you can use code to solve the bigger problems at hand, right? Because that's ultimately what you're being paid for, right? Ultimately, no one really pays you to write code. They pay you to solve problems.
So what do you think? What in your life gave you these skills? I mean, it could be hobbies, could be courses you took, could be anything. So do you think, if you reflect upon yourself, do you know what I mean? Like, what would it be, you think?
Yeah, I think just being comfortable with figuring things out on your own, and like being comfortable with not knowing the answer immediately. Sometimes I think something that sometimes people can struggle with when they're first joining industry is, in school they kind of teach you that you have an assignment. It has a well-defined sort of almost like path towards a solution, and it almost felt like for me that you were generally almost discouraged to seek outside help, or to seek like the help of like ChatGPT or things like that. But the thing that helped me a lot was kind of getting comfortable in, okay, I'm going to jump into something that, I'm very clearly not going to immediately know the answer. I'm going to use all the tools available at my disposal, which includes other people, asking them for help. And I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to get a very fast feedback loop on that, and then fix them, and then get to a solution. And I think if you're comfortable with that sort of like process, it becomes very fun, and this industry is still a great place to be in.
Very cool. Oh, I personally am dying to ask this question, because as an expert, is there one tool or AI model right now that you think is one cut above the rest? Claude Code, Codex? Is there something that is really doing it for you recently?
Well, I do like Claude Code. Yes.
I do too.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to hear.
That's the one I've been using a lot. Yeah.
I see. Very cool. Awesome.
So let me ask you one last question, Phil. So next 5 to 10 years, what robs you of sleep? What do you think that you get really anxious about something concerning AI, of course, in this world, not just in your job? And then on the other hand, what is the thing the reason why you get up in the morning. It's for the same reason, having AI at your disposal. All that keeps me going because maybe I can do X, X, Y, Z in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Well, for example, I think what gets me excited is, like I've said, it's so fast to make quick prototypes. It's so easy now to get so much information. Sometimes it hallucinates, sometimes it's wrong, but generally the amount of information you can get very quickly from AI is amazing, right? I was working on some like projects at home here just to like set up some automation at home. And normally I would have thought, oh man, I have to spend like an entire weekend just learning how to do this. But I just went on Claude. I said, hey, I'm trying to do this. Give me some resources. Give me some links to some articles I can read or like summarize them for me on like how to do this. And within like an hour, I was already up and running, having some like basic prototypes of this stuff I wanted to do. And that's just super exciting, right? In terms of concerns, I think, yeah, like I've said, this faster and faster developments led to maybe less reliable systems. I hope that trend doesn't continue because, like long term, the value long term is to have reliable systems that serve the needs of the users. And I hope that's something we retain. But sometimes I feel like the trend is not going in that direction.
Okay.
Very nice.
Well, thanks, Phil, for your insights today. It's fantastic. So thanks for joining us for the podcast today. It was fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. It was my pleasure.
Awesome.